All right, guys. We are live. Welcome to another episode of the WMMA Scene Report. This episode is going to be the Invicta FC 34. Also, just overall weekend madness preview, guys. Huge weekend coming up for the women's division. So we have Invicta FC 34, which has like 8 fights. I think 8 or 10 fights. We have Bellator 215 the same night, has 2 fights. Next day we have One Championship, has 2 fights. That's in the morning. We have Bellator 216 in the evening. That's going to have 2 fights. And then on Sunday we have UFC on ESPN, the first show on the actual ESPN cable network, which is going to have 4 fights, the most women's fights the UFC has ever put on to a single event. So we're going to get started with the results from this past weekend, as we always do, and then we'll go into some news, and then we're going to go into the weekend preview. So without further ado, the results from this weekend. So Friday night was Combate 30. We did our live stream for that one. Laura Hizar defeated Dulce Hernandez via TKO 2 minutes 29 seconds of the first round in the atomweight division. Wow, what a finish in that fight. Laura Huizar had Dulce Hernandez, rocked a little bit, and then Hernandez seemed to come back a little bit, and then boom, Huizar landed a big kick to the body that sent Hernandez down to the ground, and some follow-up punches finished the job. But really, the kick was what did it for her. Excuse me, guys. So very impressive professional debut from Laura Huizar. Looking forward to seeing more of her at Combate Americas. And I'll be honest, I had a fun time that night. I was exhausted. I had to finish it a little early before the co-main and main event started. Sorry again for that to those that watched. Next time I'll bring an energy drink instead of the whiskey, maybe. Of course, the event itself didn't even start until 10 p.m. Eastern time, so that made it a little hard as well. Anyway, moving along, UFC 234, Montana De La Rosa defeated Nadia Kassem via armbar submission at 2 minutes 37 seconds of round 2. I'll be honest, this fight was a blowout by Montana De La Rosa. Pretty much from the opening bell, I mean, Kassem tried to throw a few strikes, but they were really sloppy. And then Montana was able to just take her down and pretty much have her way with her. I wish Montana had a little bit more better finishing ability. I think she could have put her away in the first round. But she got it in the second. It was a nice submission, really nice armbar. Looked it up today on the UFC rankings, and Montana's now gone up like, I think 3 whole spots. I think a little bit too many spots, considering that Nadia Kassem had just come up from strawweight and only had like 1 previous fight in the UFC. But still, I mean, it was such a dominant win that I could see maybe their justification for it. In other related news, I think Montana said she wants to fight Paige Van Zandt next. That'd be an interesting fight, especially on the ground, because I think they both excel on the ground better than they do on the feet, and they're both very aggressive when they get it there. Moving on to the news. Okay, so Pancrase has recruited 4, for lack of a better term, grandmas for Pancrase 304 April 14th. Now, I made a video about this, and I'll see if I can bring this up here real quick. Because there's 3 Japanese ladies taking on 3 Gaijin ladies out. And it's just an interesting lineup. So at 125, we have 9-5 Emiko Raika taking on 4-3-1 Mayra Cantuaria. We have Emi Fujino, 22-11, taking on Ksenia Guseva, who's 4-0-1. That's at 115, and that is probably the biggest. That's probably the worst of the matchups itself. And then for the flyweight Queen of Pancrase title, we have Takeo Hashi, 16-6-1, taking on CD Roca from Brazil. She's 10-5-2. So if you want, you can check out my other video on that. It's titled Pancrase Raids the Retirement Center for their 304th event. That's available up on the channel. It's real short. I go into a little bit more detail of the fights there, but if you want, please check it out. Also in the news, Hannah Goldie 4-0 versus Estela Nunes 7-1, announced for Titan FC March 15th at 115 pounds. This is some interesting news because before this fight was announced, I had no idea that Estela Nunes was no longer with, one championship. She had actually, her only loss was in an actual, when she challenged Angela Lee for the title there. Let me look up and see when she last fought. Just take a second. So she last fought in July of last year with a unanimous decision win over Gina Iniong, and she was 2-1 in the promotion, and now she's no longer with one championship, which is a little surprising because why would you let someone who's 2-1 and had already challenged for your title go like that? They've kept Jenny Juan around a lot longer. One aspect of it could be that she's not Asian, she's Brazilian, and they are an Asian promotion who mostly focuses on Southeast Asia. Another possibility could be that they don't want, Angela Lee is likely going to be giving up the 115-pound title pretty soon, especially if she wins the 125-pound title, and they don't want Nunes preventing one of their, whoever they decide is going to be their next chosen star in that division. They might not want Nunes to prevent her from getting that or from taking it from her. So that's a couple possibilities. Also announced for the same fight, Lucy Bertode 1-1 versus Celine Anderson, who I believe is also 1-1, and that fight's going to take place at 135 pounds. And in other news, I couldn't read my notes. I didn't put spaces between them. Itzel Esquivel 4-2 is going to take on Stephanie Alba 3-3 at 115 pounds. That's been announced for Fury FC 31. That is also on March 15th. You might remember Stephanie Alba. She's a two-time Invicta veteran, and her last fight was when she was choked unconscious by flying triangle choke from Elise Anderson. So that will be. So you got 3 women's fights on March 15th already, and I haven't even looked up what major events are going on. So 3/15, big day already for the women's divisions. Also, final news, some bad news on this one. Sinead Kavanagh from Ireland is out of Bellator 217, which takes place in Ireland. She is set to face Olga Rubin, who's coming off a big win over Cindy Dandwa in Israel a few months ago. In to take Kavanagh's place is going to be Ione Razafiarison. Ione had 1 or 2 fights under Bellator previously. The last fight was when she beat Sinead Kavanagh, and then she hasn't fought in Bellator since then, but she's racked up another 3 straight wins since that fight. So it'll be interesting. Razafiarison, she's honestly more of a flyweight, and she's going to be fighting at featherweight. So it'll be interesting to see the size difference between her and Olga Rubin. But of course, she was able to take it to Sinead Kavanagh, who could probably be bantamweight if she actually worked out better. But the Bellator just has the flyweight and the featherweight divisions. So that's it for the news, which brings us along to going to now talk about this weekend's events. I'll be going into the longest event with the most fights is going to be Invicta 34, so I'll save that one for last. So we'll start with Bellator 215 on Friday night. It's headlined by Matt Mitrone versus Sergey Karatanov. It's taking place at the Mohegan Sun Arena. 2 women's fights. First fight up is going to be at 105 pounds. Atom weight, we have Tabitha Ann Watkins coming in as a late replacement for Marissa Messer-Belenkia. Messer-Belenkia apparently has suffered an injury. Tabitha Ann Watkins is 3-0. I don't have her age. She's 5'3". She's going to be taking on Lindsay Damsel Van Zant, who is 4-1. She's 25 and a half years old, 5 feet 2 inches. I just said her age. You might remember Lindsay Van Zant is a veteran of both King of the Cage and Invicta FC, and I believe she got permission from Invicta to do this fight for Bellator. This is actually Bellator's. I made a video about this. This is Bellator's first ever atomweight fight. No clue on if they'll continue to do atomweight fights. Fingers crossed that they'll continue to do them and feature them. Of course, this one's on the prelims, so it won't be on TV. It will, however, be airing on DAZN. In other fight on that one, I haven't had a chance to look up, before I go on, I haven't had a chance to look up any of Watkins' fights. I'm a little more familiar with Van Zant. Based purely on that, I'll let my bias pick. I'm going to go with Van Zant to win. Moving along at 145 pounds featherweight division, we have Amanda Bell, 5-5, taking on Amber Librock, 3-2. Bell's coming in. She's 30 years old, 5 feet 8 with a 70-inch reach. According to Tapology, Amber Librock is 31 years old, 5 foot 11 with a 71-inch reach. Okay, so first, I'm surprised that Librock is 31. I had no idea. I didn't know she was that old. I thought she was a lot younger. She looks a lot younger in person. The pictures don't on Tapology sucks. But I definitely didn't think she was a year older than Amanda Bell. And also you would think that with a 3-inch, being 3 inches taller, she would have more than just 1 inch reach advantage. So that's a little surprising. So for this fight, we have 2 fighters who are strikers. Bell is pure brawler, whereas Librock has a little bit more crisper striking. And in a battle of brawlers versus non-brawlers, you never know, but I'm going to go with Librock on this one. Okay, so moving along off of Bellator. Saturday morning. Before I move on from Bellator, the Friday night show is, if you're in the U.S., it is being simulcast on Paramount for the main card, and the entire event is also being broadcast on DAZN, D-A-Z-N, which is a subscription stream service. So moving along, Saturday morning, if you want to get up early enough for it, One Championship, Clash of Legends in Thailand. There are 2 ladies fights. First one, at 115 pounds, we have Rika Ishige, 4-2, taking on the debutante from Cambodia. Excuse me, guys. My apologies. Ishige is taking on the Cambodian debutante Nusray Pov. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. So Ishige, she's 4-2. She's 29. She's just outside of 30. I don't have a weight or height available for her. Nusray Pov, I don't have any information for her other than that she is 5 feet 1 inches tall, according to Tapology. Ishige is more primarily a grappler, which is kind of a weird thing to think about coming out of Thailand. You expect pretty much every Thai fighter to be a Muay Thai expert, but Ishige is definitely better when she gets to fight to the ground. Pove, on the other hand, from what I've read, she is a practitioner of the Cambodian version of Muay Thai. I can't remember the name of it. So she's obviously going to be more of a stand-up fighter, but she should also be really good in the clinch. Just based on the experience factor, and if she can get it to the ground, then I'm going to have to go with Ishige on that. Put it on the back here. Taking Tiny Doll for the win on that one. The other ladies fight on that one is also at 115 pounds. We have Gina Iniong, 7-4 out of the Philippines, taking on Gian Radzuan, 4-0 out of the Malaysia. So Iniong is 5'2". I don't know, I have her age. Radzuan is also 5'2", and I'm still a little unsure about her age as well. I don't have a reach or anything for them. Iniong has bounced from wins and losses in her last 3 fights, and Radzuan has a perfect record, of course, as a pro. Based on what I've seen out of them the last few fights, and it's vague because I don't get to watch one championship as much as I'd like to, and because that they've now made their events even harder to watch behind a paywall, just going off of what I can remember, I'm going with Radzuan on this one. I think she doesn't have the experience, but I think from what I'm seeing, she's going to be one championship's next budding star in this division if she can keep winning. All right, moving on to Saturday night, Bellator 216. This one's also taking place at the Mohegan Sun Arena. So two Bellator nights in a row. I think we just had that last weekend, or the weekend before as well. First ladies fight of the evening. Is it the first? I could have sworn there was more than one ladies fight. Looks like, okay, so there are supposed to be 2 fights this weekend. Looks like one of them just got canceled, probably even today. It doesn't give a reason why, but it's supposed to be a flyweight bout between Alexandra Below, who's 1-0, versus Sarah Payant, who is 3-4, 2 local girls. So that just leaves us with 1 fight at flyweight. Valerie Loreda, the Taekwondo fighter, making her pro debut, versus, I believe she's a local girl, Colby Fletcher, from Oklahoma, coming in at 1-2. So Laredo is coming in off of a loss in her last amateur fight, but she's making her pro debut here. Whereas Fletcher won her first professional fight, but has since dropped her last 2. One to Alice Yager, who's like, I don't like to bash fighters, but if haters were to call, like to call some of these ladies soccer moms, Alice Yager would probably be the one that fits that bill. And before that, she has a loss to Montana De La Rosa, and that was almost 4 years ago. Wow. And the Yager fight was like 3.5 years ago. So they brought in Fletcher, who hasn't fought in quite a long time in MMA, but I believe she's a kickboxer. So Loreda's 20 years, 6 months. Fletcher's 26 years old. 5'4" for Loreda, 5'6" for Fletcher, and they're both strikers. So Bellator put up a striker versus a striker. So we'll see how this fight goes. I think I'm going to have to go with Loreda on this. I think Bellator hopefully did their research, because it seems like they really want to build this girl up because she's a looker. And that's their pretty girls division. They have 2 women's divisions and 125 Pretty much everyone calls it the Pretty Girls division, other than Bellator officially. So I'm going to go with Valerie Loretta to win this one. Moving along, Saturday night, UFC on ESPN. The first event on the actual ESPN channel. As soon as my Tapology page loads up here. 4 fights, ladies and gentlemen. 4 fights on this event. Huge for the ladies. So, first fight is going to be Alexandra Albu, 3-0, coming in versus Emily Whitmire, who's 3-2, and that's at 115 pounds. Albu is like the pure definition of a part-time fighter, and it shows in her fights. She hasn't progressed in skill at all since her debut several years ago. Whitmire, however, was a veteran of the 125-pound Ultimate Fighter show. I think it was season 28, 25, I don't remember. And she's shown a lot of progression since then, and especially since now that she's dropped down to 115. Whitmire's pretty good on the ground. Albu is probably better on the ground than she is on the feet. She's very PVZ-esque in that Albu is, in that she's very relentless. She has a lot of cardio. Just doesn't have the skills to back up the natural athletic ability. Whereas Whitmire has the skills, less of an athlete. So let's see, when was Albu's last fight? A year and a half ago. She hasn't fought since then. And that was a unanimous decision over Kylan Curran. Whitmire is coming in with a win after she dropped down over Jamie Moyle about 7 months ago after she dropped down to strawweight. So I'm going to go with Whitmire in this one. I think Albu is only doing the UFC to supplement her Instagram fame in Eastern Europe. She basically seems to be like a model full-time and only fights in order to, I guess, get more clicks on her Instagram page. She is naturally athletic. She comes in great shape, and she does have a gas tank for days. But anyone could tell you that that's going to catch up to her because she's not skilled enough. And eventually, you're going to come up with someone who is skilled, and your natural athletic ability is going to run out. And I believe that Whitmire is the one to show her that. So I'm going with Whitmire. Next up, also at 115 pounds, Jessica Penney making her return after quite a long while. She was suspended due to being, unfortunately for her, she was the first person to be busted by USADA in the UFC using their blood passport, where they keep track of all your records and then figure out that you're on something. Can't remember what it was she was on though. Penny's coming in at 12-5, taking on Escobar, who is 6-4. Penny hasn't won a fight since the Ultimate Fighter 20 finale 4 years ago. That was over Randa Marcos. Escobar is Penny's riding a 3-fight losing streak since then. Escobar, on the other hand, hasn't won since she beat Deanna Bennett at strawweight, and that was coming up on 2 years ago. She since then moved to the UFC, where she dropped a unanimous decision to Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and then dropped another unanimous decision to Jessica Aguilar. Jessica Aguilar, I believe that's her only win in the UFC, was over Jodie Escobar. This is probably the purest definition you can get of a loser leaves town fight, especially for Penny. She just turned 36 years old, or she's about to. Yeah, she just turned 36 years old like 2 days ago. Escobar is also like almost 33 years old. Neither of them have really achieved much in the strawweight division in the UFC. And one note I will make is that these two are an example of this fight could be fought at atomweight, because they've both fought atomweight in the past. Whether or not they can make it, still make the weight? I don't know. I think they probably could. Neither of them, put on a lot, pack on excess weight between fights. Neither of them have really bulked up in recent years. In this one, I think Penny's going to come in, even with the ring rest. I'm going to take the hungry Penny for the win. We'll go Penny by sub or unanimous decision on this one. All right, so moving along and moving up a weight class. At 125 pounds flyweight, we have Andrea KGB Lee, 9-2, taking on Ashley Evans Smith, 6-3. Andrea Lee's a moderate favorite, plus minus 200 on Tapology. She is 30 years old to Smith's 31 years. We have 5'6", with a 69.5-inch reach advantage for Andrea Lee versus 5'8" with a 67.5-inch reach for Ashley Evans Smith. This will only be Ashley Evans Smith's second fight at flyweight. She won her flyweight debut against Beck Rawlings. That was about 10 months ago. She was supposed to fight against... now I can't remember. I think she was supposed to fight against Antonina... That's right. She was supposed to fight against Antonina Shevchenko back in November or December, but had to drop out with an injury. So she's making her return. KGB Lee is coming off her successful UFC debut with a unanimous decision victory over Veronica Macedo. And that was about 8 months ago. This is an interesting matchup. Smith is a wrestler as her base. Striking's okay, but nothing special. She has fought as high as flyweight before. When she was an amateur, she beat, she's known for beating Fallon Fox, the trans fighter. KGB Lee made her reputation in both Invicta and in LFA. I think she had better wins in Invicta than she did in LFA, though. LFA really looked to build her up, as it were. So anyway, I was saying this makes an interesting fight. Lee's fairly well-rounded. She's primarily a striker, though. Smith's the wrestler. And one thing we've seen is that both of Andrea Lee's losses came on the ground due to submission when she got put in trouble. Can Evan Smith get her to the ground? Yeah, I definitely believe she can. Can she get her in trouble? That's a big if. If she can, we've seen, and I still believe this, that Lee is pretty much a front runner. The 2 times that she lost pretty much as soon as she got into trouble. It's like she lost what she was doing. The key to Evan Smith winning this fight is that she has to fight unorthodox. KGB fights in a way that it's almost paint by numbers, or like very like she fights from a guidebook. It's almost like, here's a better way to put it. Her team's called the Karate Mafia, or that's who she was fighting out of. Well, she fights like a karate fighter in that she's been doing forms for so many years that she fights and then reacts to her opponent based on how she expects her opponent to react. But if her opponent reacts a way that she's not prepared for, or attacks her in a way that she's unprepared for, you almost see like a lapse in her judgment as she fights. Like she gets this look on her face like, what do I do? Before she finally manages to make the adjustments. So Evan Smith has to make it like a dirty, unorthodox fight to do this. And I think that she can. So I'm going to go with Evan Smith for the win, most likely by unanimous decision. Would I put money on this fight? No. No, definitely not. Okay, and moving along, not the co-main event, but the feature fight. At 115 pounds, Cynthia Calvillo, 7-1, versus Courtney Casey, 8-6. Calvillo is 31 years old, 7 months. Casey is 2 months older than Calvillo. Casey is 5'7", to Calvillo's 5'4". Casey also has a reach advantage of 67 inches to Calvillo's 64-inch reach. So this is a fight that... This is one of those fights that, like, you know that it was set up by the matchmakers in a certain way. I think that this fight was set up for Calvillo to win. I think that they're setting her up for another big push like they did last time. They came back. They had her fight someone who was like on the low end of the 115. I think of the top 15. I think Botelho was like 15 at the time they fought, maybe just outside. Now they moved Calvillo up. As of this week in the rankings, Casey is number 11. Calvillo is number 12. And I would not be surprised if Calvillo wins, that she moves up into the top 10 with this win. I believe that the UFC is setting her up for a big push the way they were before she lost to Carla Esparza and got busted because she couldn't stay off the weed, as Stephen A. Smith would say. Stay off the weed. Casey is one of my favorite fighters to watch because she likes to bring the action. She's rarely in a boring fight. One big thing that drives me nuts about her is that she's one of the tallest girls in the division. She has probably the best reach in the division, but she doesn't use it to her advantage. She's always falling in, getting caught up in the clinch battles where she struggles. One thing about these two fighters, they're both good on fighting on top, on the ground, but neither of them seem very good off their back. Calvillo probably just not used to being put there until Esparza did repeatedly. And then Casey just doesn't do well off of her back either. So it'll be very interesting to see how this fight goes. Casey's coming in. I've watched a couple of interviews on her, pretty confident. Calvillo is, of course, always confident. She thinks she's like the next big thing. I'll be cheering for Courtney Casey to win this fight, but I feel like stylistically she's being set up to lose and provide a push to Calvillo. So I'm going to pick Calvillo to win this one. Not that I'm happy about it because I can't stand her. So that brings us now to Invicta. Oh, by the way, UFC is on the ESPN network in the U.S. That's the actual ESPN channel. So that brings us to the big one for this live stream this week. Invicta FC 34 being headlined by a title fight in the flyweight division between Vanessa Porto and Pearl Gonzalez. I wish I had more time to watch more videos on these ladies, but my time has been limited this week. First fight is going to be the only 135-pound card on the fight. Caitlin Salmons making her pro debut versus Christina Ricker. From what I've seen of these two, Christina Ricker is going to be the cleaner of the two. Just from the couple clips I saw of them, I don't know much about them otherwise. I'm going to go with Ricker in this one. Next up, 145 pounds. Courtney King, 1-1 versus Holly Salazar. 1-0-1. Let's see. They're both pretty tall girls. King 5'9" versus Salazar's 5'10". Don't have much information on them besides that. Let's see. Courtney King is coming off a loss in her second fight. She holds a win over Colby Northcutt in her pro debut. And then she lost to Yaya Rincon almost a year and a half ago in Invicta. Whereas Holly Salazar, on the other hand, is coming off a win a year ago to Mara Tainanis at AFC, Alaska Fighting Championship, looks like. And then, she has a draw with Audrey Wolf 5 months ago at Invicta. I'm surprised I don't remember that one. You don't see too many draws. Might have been one of those events I had to miss because of I was bartending at the time. Uh, Coin toss, guys. We'll go with Courtney King. All right, next up, at 125 pounds. This is a mostly flyweight and featherweight card. We have Victoria Leonardo, 3-1, coming in against Jamie Milanowski, who is 2-2. Both of these fighters are coming off a win, preceded by a loss. Leonardo is taller by 1 inch. Let's see. Let's look at their last fights. So, what's her name? Milanowski's last win was over a debutante, and with a by armbar submission. And Leonardo's last fight was a rear naked choke submission win over 3-2 Monica Medina. Again, this is like the bottom fights. I'll go with Leonardo on this one, just based on record alone. All right, so now we're moving up. By the way, guys, the first 4 fights of this card are going to be available to view on Facebook. The entire event, however, will be available on UFC Fight Pass. That will be, I believe, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this Friday night. So moving up into the 145 pounds division, we have Faith McMahon, probably better known to most people as Faith Van Duyn, coming in at 6-3 versus Helena Kolesnik, 5-2. Both of these ladies are coming in off a loss. In McMahon's case, it was quite a while ago. She lost 2 years and 4 months ago to Irene Aldana by TKO at 135 pounds. She's moving back up to featherweight, whereas Helena Kolesnik last fought at Invicta FC 30, where she lost to Felicia Spencer via rear naked choke submission. I believe that was in the 2nd round, if my memory serves me correctly. I was there. So both of these two have decent fists, decent punches, decent power behind their punches, I should say. Neither of them are like super great on the ground. I thought Kolesnik surprised me by how long she survived against Spencer. But she so far has been winless inside Invicta FC. She's 0-2 inside Invicta. However, I believe that this fight is going to be her time to shine. And with McMahon coming in with a lot of ring rust, I think that Kolesnik is going to take this fight. So we'll take her down the line. So moving up is going to be all about the flyweight division. This next fight is the reserve bout for the flyweight tournament that Invicta is having, and the quarterfinals? Semifinals. I guess it's the semifinals of this are happening the same night. But this is a reserve bout in case any of the fighters can't make it to the next round. So the reserve bout is going to be between Tracy Cortez, 4-1, taking on Erin Blanchfield, 4-0. Now, Cortez is stepping in on relatively short notice, replacing Karina Rodriguez, who got moved up into the tournament itself. Cortez is coming in 4-1, taking on Erin Blanchfield, 3-0. Cortez is 25 years old, 5'5", 67-inch reach listed on Tapology. Blanchfield is the younger fighter, at a couple months shy of 20 years old, 5'4", and a 68-inch reach. So Cortez made her pro debut, I believe, with Invicta, where she lost by submission to Sherry Muraski. Since then, she has gone perfect 4-0, including against Caitlin Neal, also at Invicta. One thing I will say, her competition hasn't been the greatest. during her career. Her best win is against Monica Medina, who was 7 months ago. She was 3-1. Blanchfield, on the other hand, has fought twice for Invicta. She made her pro debut for CFFC. Scored a doctor stoppage. She has a split decision over Brittany Cloudy and then a majority decision over Kay Hansen at Invicta. What was that? I guess Invicta. Was it Invicta 30? No, that was Invicta 32, I believe. Close fight. Kay Hansen's definitely better than anybody that Cortez has fought. So who takes this fight? Standing, I think Cortez can certainly stand with Blanchfield. On the ground, you got to go with Blanchfield. And I think this fight will go to the ground. So I'm going to have to go with Blanchfield in this fight. And she will be the reservist in the flyweight tournament. So moving up into the tournament proper. We have, at flyweight, of course, we have Deanna Bennett coming in 9-4-1 versus Miranda Maverick 4-1. Both of the let's see. So Maverick is 1-1 in her last two, and so is Deanna Bennett. We'll get into that in a second. So we have Deanna Bennett's 34 years old. She's 5'4". To Maverick, the much younger fighter by what is that? 13 years. 21 years old, 7 months, and she is 5'3". So not much height difference between the two, but definitely an age and certainly an experience difference between these two. So Bennett is coming off a loss to Kelly Cobold 4 months ago at Tough Enough. They actually had a couple pro fights. Before that, she had a win 10 months ago via split decision over Karina Rodriguez in Invicta. Maverick, on the other hand, is coming off a armbar win over Victoria Leonardo. Before that, she suffered a split decision loss to Bergen Sanchez. This one is a little tough to call. Maverick is definitely a prospect in the division. I don't know if I'd label her the blue chip yet, but she's certainly a prospect. She hasn't fought like the toughest of competition. I mean, she's still young in her career. She's had 5 fights. She is coming off the best win of her career, though. No, not really. Most of her opposition hasn't been that strong, I guess, other than Brogan Sanchez, who she did go take to a split decision. Walker Sanchez was 5-0 at the time. Deanna Bennett, she's been around for a lot longer. One thing about her, I will say, she has fought a lot tougher competition, and she's fought in a couple, like 2 different weight classes. She definitely has experience against higher level competition on her side. Deanna Bennett's problem is that she tends to choke when big implications are on the line. For example, she got that majority draw against Melinda Fabian in the UFC, which got her cut. There's a couple times before that where you thought she was about to be on the cusp of something, and then she just, crapped the bed, I guess. Coming off that loss to Kelly Cobold. Of course, Kelly Cobold's had a lot of fights, but she was coming off a long layoff too, I think. I want to pick Deanna Bennett, because of the experience factor and, just the competition factor, the strength of competition. But I think this tournament could possibly Miranda Maverick's time to shine. I got to go with Maverick on this one. Sorry, Deanna. I just think that Maverick's relentlessness is going to be too much for Bennett, who tends to she has a habit of doing just enough to win sometimes, especially when she had that split decision win over Karina Rodriguez, where she really just walled and stalled the whole fight. Speaking of Karina Rodriguez, moving up to the co-main event and also the flyweight tournament, Milana Dudaeva versus Karina Rodriguez. Dudaeva 12-7. She's a couple months shy of being 30 years old. 5'5", reach of 61.5 inches. Karina Rodriguez, when I looked her up, I was surprised at her age. She is 33 years old and 5 months. She's 5'7". I do not have a reach for her. So here you have a judoka with heavy hands in Dudaeva versus a really crisp, fast, speedy boxer with a little bit of power also in Karina Rodriguez. Dudaeva is coming off her first win in quite a while, although that was almost a year ago over Christina Marks. That was 10 months ago in Invicta. She won by second round KO. Just sparked Christina Marks. Karina Rodriguez, though, is coming off a split decision loss to Deanna Bennett that we talked about earlier. One thing I will notice, I watched a couple of Dudaeva's fights. She used to be really flat-footed, but she's gotten a little bit better. She does like to stalk forward and look for counters for that big right hand. Rodriguez, however, is a lot faster on the feet. She's more mobile. She's your typical Lobo gym fighter. She trains out of the same gym as like Irene Aldana, Alexa Grasso, and that's how she fights. She's got that crisp boxing, good head movement, good footwork. I think on the feet, Rodriguez has the skills to avoid those bombs from Dudaeva and outbox her. Now, if Dudaeva manages to get the trip or the throw down to the ground, Rodriguez could be in trouble. I haven't seen too much of her ground game. But then again, Dudaeva, she tends to be one of those fighters, one of those judo fighters who gets the throw, but then isn't really able to capitalize on it once she does. It's like she gets down there and it's like she's waiting for the ref to cry Ippon and get the win, I guess. I'm going to have to go with Rodriguez on this one. I think she's on, even with that loss to Deanna Bennett, she's on a better roll. So I'm going to go with Rodriguez on this one. Just by, I would say better all-around striking skill. So out of the 4 tournament members, winners go on to the final round. And then the winner of this decides the #1 contender for the winner of the main event. So out of the 2 I picked, Miranda Maverick versus Rodriguez. You know, Rodriguez, this is now kind of like now or never moment for her. She can either win or never get that big call up, possibly. Miranda Maverick has a long way to go, but I got to give it to the girl Maverick. Has she faced as tough a competition as some of these other ladies? No, but I'll tell you what, she has some good momentum on her side. And I just think that she's going to be hard to beat in this tournament. She's got a good overall skill set, but she's just relentless with it too. She's non-stop in her fights. So I'm going to have to go with Maverick to win the tournament. I'll be cheering for Rodriguez, though. Big mark for the Lobo fighters. So that brings us to the main event. Vanessa Porto versus Pearl Gonzalez for the flyweight championship. Vanessa Porto, 20-8, 34 years, 10 months. She's 5'3", with a 65-inch reach, taking on Pearl Gonzalez. 9-3, 32 years, 6 months. I'm surprised by her age, too. That's another one I'm surprised. I didn't know she was that old. She's 5'4", with a 68, excuse me, with a 68-inch reach. So, 3-inch reach advantage for Pearl Gonzalez, according to Tapology. So Porto is probably just one of the steadiest fighters around. You know, she's always going to be a tough fight for anybody. She's never an easy fight for anyone. Mostly a brawler, but I would say like a little bit of a refined brawler. She has a couple of losses in the last couple of years to Jennifer Maia in a title challenge, and then she lost to Agnieszka Niedviec. But since then, she's bounced back with a TKO over Milana Dudieva a little over a year ago, and then not long after that, she got a rear naked choke submission over Mariana Moraes. Pro Gonzalez, she was introduced to most of us via the UFC. She lost her debut there to Cynthia Calvillo by rear naked choke, and then she dropped a unanimous decision to Poliana Botelho. So UFC decided to drop her. Invicta said, we'll take that. She came in, got a unanimous decision win over Callie Robbins at strawweight and then she decided in the next couple fights she's going to move up to flyweight. She defeated Barbara Ascioli by armbar submission last year, and then came back a few months later and beat Diane Firmino by unanimous decision. And Firmino was a big flyweight, and that was a pretty interesting challenge for Pro Gonzalez, who is moving up from strawweight. So what does this mean for these two ladies? It should mean for a very good, very interesting fight. Biggest test for at flyweight for Gonzalez. For Vanessa Porto, it's mostly work as usual. Actually, one of her less experienced opponents, really, that she's faced in a while. Maybe not. But it should be business as usual for Vanessa Porto. Who do I pick? I'm going to go with Vanessa Porto. I just feel that she's the more consistent fighter. She's more consistent, and I feel she has more experience fighting at this weight, and she has better wins at this weight as well, including Roxanne Modafferi, unanimous decision. That was a few years back, but still. We have someone who's moving up in weight, taking on someone who's fought at this weight class their whole career, or most of their career. I'm going to have to go with Vanessa Porto on this one. Alright guys, so that's it for the fight previews for this weekend. And pretty much it for the stream. It is longer stream than usual, of course. I usually try to keep these down to like a half hour. But a lot to talk about because, like I said, this is like the weekend madness for the women's divisions. I'm very excited for it. I'll be doing a live fight companion Friday night. We're going to do the Bellator prelims from 6:30 to 8 when Invicta FC starts, and then we're going to switch over to Invicta FC and do that entire event. I'll also keep Bellator previews on over to the side just to see what's going on with them. I'll keep giving updates as well on that. Saturday, probably not doing anything for Bellator 216. If I do, just keep an eye out on the channel. And then UFC, I'm just going to watch. I'm just going to enjoy that one purely as, a home viewer. So keep an eye out for when we go live for the live fight companions. Until then, that's it for this week's edition of the WMMA Scene Report. The thumbs ups are always appreciated. And until next time, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to WMMA Scene now, the best, fastest growing women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. Guys, see you Friday night for Bellator and Invicta FC.